Alright, so Alex Pereira, the UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, and one of the biggest stars in the organisation, probably the biggest star, maybe. Anyway, he is not going to be fighting on the White House. June 14th, on the White House lawn, Pereira will not be there. So we're going to talk about this and what does it mean? What are the extenuating circumstances? What are the knock-on effects? What are the potential fights that are going to happen? Alex Pereira put a tweet out or an Instagram post and he said it looks like the White House is a no-go. Now, as we know, they're going to put on the best fight card that the UFC has ever seen, the best combat sports fight card that the world has ever seen, and I cannot wait for it. Happening at the White House with Donald Trump there, 5,000 people by the lawn, and then another 100,000 people close by watching via big screen technology. It's going to be quite the spectacle. Now, I'm just walking uphill. Now, the fight that we thought we were going to see at the White House, or one of them, was Jon Jones fighting Alex Pereira. Now, there's a whole backstory with that. We know Jon Jones retired because he didn't want to face Tom Aspinall. We know that he was offered $30 million, but still didn't want to do it. He retired from the sport. Alex Pereira came back, knocked out Magomed Ankalaev, did it in 29 seconds, which was just ridiculous, okay? And then after that fight, Pereira said he wants to fight Jon Jones at the White House.
Alex, you're looking great. Who do you want to fight next?
Jon Jones, watch your house, Sherma.
And Jon Jones said, yeah, I want Pereira.
I'd like to fight Alex Pereira at the White House.
So it would seem that that is a match made in heaven in terms of star power, in terms of the magnitude of the matchup, and in terms of them wanting to put on the biggest fights at the White House. That would have seemed like it ticked all the boxes. But of course, if you remember rightly, Dana White said he's not sure, don't quote me on this, something like he needs fighters he can depend on, okay? He needs fighters that he can trust. He needs to put on a main event with someone involved that is dependable, that isn't going to back out the last second.
You know, I felt about him. I can't risk putting him in big positions in a big spot and have something go wrong, especially the White House card.
Remember, you got to think, they gave Jon what he wanted. They went on in this whole campaign about how Jon Jones was the greatest of all time, and then apparently offered him $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall, and he just decided that he didn't want to do it, that he was living his best life, okay? He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to take on Tom Aspinall. He didn't have anything more to prove. More importantly, and I'm not getting into whether or not he could have beaten Tom, that's not important, but from the UFC's perspective, he wasn't dependable. They agreed to something in person, apparently, but Jones backed out, okay? And he can't run that risk at the White House. They can't put on this massive event with someone like Jon Jones as the main event, or even the co-main event, and him to decide halfway through it, or through the training camp, or leading up to it, or just on a whim like, you know what, I don't need this, okay? Now, I don't think Jon Jones would do that, because Pereira, stylistically, is a favourable matchup. Look at what he did to Ciryl Gane. Look at what he's done to everyone throughout his career. And yeah, Pereira moving up to heavyweight, it's not surprising because the man's gigantic for heavyweight. He's almost 40 years old. He's 38. He's not getting any younger. And every time you make weight, it comes at a cost, you know, and it gets harder as you get older. And of course, he wants to be a three-weight division champion as well. There's a few people out there that want to do that. Conor McGregor is one of them. Ilia Topuria is one of them. And so does Islam Makhachev. And whoever does that will literally be the most successful MMA fighter in the history of the human race. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people want to do that. However, going back to the original point, Pereira says it's a no-go. So who is he going to fight? Because Pereira, from what I understand and what he seems to be saying, is that he's moving up to heavyweight. And if you look at what he's done at light heavyweight, he doesn't really have anything to prove. He's beaten everyone. Yeah, he lost to Magomed. He came back, he beat him in 29 seconds. But prior to that, he took out everyone. Now, there's only one person at light heavyweight that kind of really does have a case, a claim, and that is Carlos Ulberg. And that is a fight that I would like to see. However, with respect to Carlos, as great of a fighter and a human being that he is, he's not the biggest name. That's not to say that he wouldn't be a tough fight, because he would be a tough fight, stylistically, the size and everything, the skill that he has, right? But is that the fight to keep Pereira at light heavyweight? I don't know if it is. I think the allure of going up to heavyweight, it's just more attractive. So anyway, we know in the heavyweight division, Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, that has got to happen. And I assume that that's going to go down pretty quickly. We've got to get an announcement sometime soon. Last we heard from Tom, he was on Helwani's show, and he was saying that he was still having issues and there was a potential of surgery. I saw a video of him recently with Tommy Fury, and he seemed to be fine. Now, I'm obviously not looking through the lens of Tom Aspinall's eyes, but he seemed okay. So fingers crossed that he was being jovial and being fun and he wasn't feeling sorry for himself, you know, and down in the dumps. Fingers crossed, that's a good sign. And therefore, soon we get an announcement of Ciryl Gane taking on Tom Aspinall. 2, which is crazy, but it will be the second time. Assuming that Tom was to beat Ciryl Gane, right? Would that be the matchup for Alex Pereira? Right? Maybe it would be. Maybe it would. But I don't think they want to put Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall on the White House, because it is a celebration of 1776, America's birthday, 250 years old. And let's be honest, stylistically, I think Tom Aspinall would have a pretty fun time against Alex Pereira. Yes, he could get knocked out. Yes, he could get clipped. Yes, he could eat a head kick like Yuri Prochazka. But he could also take him down. And they don't want an Englishman going to the White House on their birthday and beating whoever it is. They probably don't want an Englishman winning on that card. Speaking of Tom, he went out there recently, he was talking about boxing. He said, yeah, he does want to box. He still has a lot of work to do in the UFC. Excuse me, almost fell over. But he definitely wants to box, but he doesn't want to turn pro as such, taking on the likes of Anthony Joshua, who fights Jake Paul this weekend. That whole situation is just crazy, to be honest. What do you think about that? Do you think it's a real fight? I kind of do. I do think it's a real fight because Eddie Hearn's involved. But anyway, Tom Aspinall, who's much bigger than Jake Paul, doesn't want to fight the professional boxers because that would be stupid, because they've done it a lifetime. But he is open to boxing somebody like a Francis Ngannou. But that's down the line after he's beaten, everyone that he needs to beat at heavyweight in the UFC, after he's beaten Ciryl Gane, after he's beaten Waldo Cortez Acosta, after potentially beating Alex Pereira. I don't know who the matchups are going to be, but they would definitely be some front runners.
I wouldn't mind boxing an MMA fighter. Do you know what I mean? I think that'd be.
I think Gane would be a good fight, no?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I like
That'd be a big fight, that.
Mate, I've got fights.
You walk him out, yeah?
100%. I mean,
I've got fights in the UFC to do first.
And speaking of boxing, Ilia Topuria said the same thing just recently as well. He's only going to have 1 or 2 more fights in the UFC. Then he's going to go to the boxing world, right? Ilia's young. Ilia's got knockout power. Ilia is, quite frankly, an incredible fighter in every way, and I think he would have a good shot if he was to go over to boxing and do it that way, like really become a solid professional, as opposed to having, McGregor had the money fight, and then some boxers, some MMA fighters have fought Jake Paul in boxing, and there's been Luke Rocco versus Darren Till in like Misfits and stuff like that. I think Ilia would have a shot at really becoming a legit professional boxing world champion, as well as being a 2-weight division champion in the UFC. Anyway, I'm waffling on here a little bit. I'm just out walking the dogs because our house is upside down right now. We have got workmen in every part of the house. So we've taken the dogs for a walk just to get out of the bloody house. And that's why I'm doing the video as I'm walking. And that's why I'm a little bit out of breath and a little bit distracted, because we're going up and down a lot of hills. What do you think about this? Pereira not being on at the White House. What do you think that means? Who do you think he matches up against next? Let me know in the comment section. What do you think about Tom Aspinall saying that soon he wants to go to boxing, and when do you think that fight with Ciryl Gane materialises? Obviously we've got 324, that's locked in. UFC 325 in Sydney, that's locked in. I'll be there at both of them actually, and then we've got 326, which is Charles Oliveira taking on Max Holloway, a rematch that was destined to happen, and certainly after Charles Oliveira destroyed Mateusz Gamrot and said he wants to fight for the BMF. Okay, that fight was always going to happen.
Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, BMF. Vamos fazer acontecer essa.
So what do you think? Tom versus Ciryl 2 at UFC 327. I mean, come on, it's got to happen some point soon. Tom didn't fight all of 2025. Well, no, he had one fight in 25 against Ciryl after sitting out waiting for Jones. He had one fight in 24 against Curtis Blades. So he doesn't want to sit around too long, but of course that all depends on the health of his eyes. First and foremost, he's got to get better. But anyway, I started off talking about Alex Pereira. He's not going to be at the White House. Who do you think he fights? Do you think it will be a Tom Aspinall? Do you think it will be at heavyweight? Or do you think it will be against the #1 contender in the light heavyweight division against Carlos Ulberg? Pardon me. Anyway, let me know what you think. December here in California. People talk a lot of shit about California. Usually people that don't live here. Yeah, the taxes are crazy and some of the politics are a little bit out there. But the weather is phenomenal and the lifestyle is great. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, thanks for watching. Subscribe and ring the bell. Let me know about everything that I said in the comment section, please. And you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.